You look good, man. With,
Thanks,
with
thanks.
your backup. I think
Once in a while, you try to. The truth is, as you grow old, you find out that you're blonde, your hair is just growing.
Yeah.
So you're no longer very confident.
That's a new one.
You're no longer very confident leaving your hair
Yeah.
open. Ideally, I would have worn an Igbo
Attire.
hat, or cap. But I didn't find this. So I remember I had this Ashebi cap somewhere. I just said, let's put it on.
Yeah, and
I moved.
you used to be into fashion. I still.
Yeah, well, I was born into a fashion or tailoring family.
Okay.
My both parents are tailors, seamstress, a tailor and seamstress. So I grew up knowing about tailoring, appreciating good dresses, wear soon, wear made dresses, and I've tried to do a side hustle around tailoring services. But the headache about labor and labor management, I just looked at the numbers. Most of the people thought that they were slaving for you without knowing that you were creating market
Opportunities for them. Yeah.
I mean, I grew up in Afibo, and the mindset there was nothing in tailoring. When I got exposure to Abuja, I realized that we have a larger population of people who have higher discretionary income, so they can pay more for the tailoring services. So I was actually paying my tailors, who were my team members. Not that they do other things apart from just putting the clothes together. They don't bring the design. They don't do the cutting. They don't even do the finishing. Right? Their demands and their intricacies were just not very encouraging. Some point you give somebody, you're paying him as at then 5,000 to make a clothes. He would rather want to take a shwa. Oh, that's a slang.
Yeah.
And that he's getting 3,000 paid for, and he will use your materials, he will use your resources, he will use your light, he will use your space to make those clothes, and they abandon yours. And I was tired of chasing them up and down. I decided to leave it.
Yeah. But it's still in you, obviously. Anyone looking at you will see that you've still got that sense of fashion. And
At this age, we no longer care. We no longer care.
but if it's there, it's there. That's
What is important now is to how to put body and soul together.
Yeah.
Especially in a challenging country like ours.
Yeah.
So how to ensure that you can meet your daily obligations stress-free. Because what kills most people today is financial burden.
Yeah.
How to get them solved. And I think that's why we're here.
Yeah, that's why we are here, and we are happy to announce that the show is back. I mean, we've been off for like 2 months, but finally we're back. And I'm not here to make excuses. It's either we did this show or we come back making excuses. So no time for excuses. It's time to get down to business, talking about the global capital market. And what a way to be back to bring on our new guest, Mr. Okudili Egwu. He's a man of many parts. He's a vice president, Cowrie Asset Management. He's been in this industry. He's been there, he's done that. And I'm excited to have you on this show. Welcome.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. Financial advocacy, financial literacy is something I'm passionate about. The more people are aware, the more people are financially aware, the more people are financially educated, the more we can address the issue of poverty. The way we can address wealth distribution, and the way people can be better equipped to take life-changing decisions. So investment is something I'm passionate about.
Yeah.
And I do hope that we increase the number of people who are more market aware, more financially literate, because that's the only way we can deepen our market. The capital market is still lagging behind extremely very behind, and there are a lot of opportunities that people are not aware. So if you have platforms like this that can explore the market, showcase what benefits and opportunity that exists in the global market and in the national market, I think a lot of people will be better for it. So I'm in for anything that can help increase the advocacy.
Please roll the tape.
Yeah.
Okay, welcome to this brand new episode of Market Tape. It's episode 20, and there's actually a lot to talk about today. But before we get into it, just to make our usual disclosure that this show is for information purposes only. Nothing we say on this show should be taken as a direct investment advice to you. Investing comes with a lot of intricacies, it has an aspect of risk to it, and you want to make sure that you are talking directly with a professional before you put any of the things we say here to use. That said, let's get into the discussions of the day. We actually had quite a lot of things happening this week. I mean, we started the week hearing about the meeting between Flutterwave and the president. And the story is that the president gave his backing for Flutterwave, one of the unicorns in Nigeria, one of the tech giants in the country, to list on the Nigerian Stock Exchange. That is the story. But it got me thinking, what has this exactly got to do with the president? I understand that the president is doing a lot to attract viable businesses into the country to make it easier for businesses to operate. But the process of listing on the exchange has little or nothing, in my opinion, to do with the presidency. So, what brings Tinubu into this equation?
Optics. Flutterwave, you can say, is one of Nigeria's export to the world.
Yeah.
It's a company that was incubated here in Nigeria that has gone global. That has operations in several African countries. And it's also one of the few fintech companies that have had a very huge impact in payment systems, that have kind of democratized the payment space. I recall years back when the banks were dominating the payment space, it was relatively difficult to get value for payments and transactions.
Yeah.
You used to have T+2 before you get your value and all that. But with the likes of Flutterwave, Paystack, now Monify, the Moneypoint and the likes, they have democratized that space to the point that payment services is now instantaneous.
Instant, yeah.
So, and that's one thing I'm very proud about the Nigerian financial system. The Nigerian financial system has one of the best and most robust payment infrastructures in the world. Our payment system is one that you can rely on. You don't see it anywhere else. Have you asked yourself, why is it that the Yahoo guys always scam foreigners rather than local Nigerians? Have you asked yourself why things like phishing or email compromise is common? Simple reason is, there's a feature that we underrate in this country. When you try to make a payment to anybody, there's a name confirmation. There's a name account number confirmation. Are you aware of that? Mm-hmm. So if you want to bake somebody and the account number doesn't tally, you tell you there's not name and account number does not match.
Yeah.
And it will fail.
Yeah.
But abroad,
I mean, this is if you're like making salary payments.
If I'm transferring money to Nathan,
mm-hmm.
and I want to pay, I will get the feedback that says you are transferring. This is actually Nathan. The account number is actually owned by Nathan.
Okay.
The name tallies.
Yeah.
That the bank you're actually paying. If I say specify UBA, it will actually verify that I'm actually paying to UBA account. So if I put an account number that doesn't belong to UBA, it will fail. Abi?
Yeah, it will fail. But what if you put?
Well, then so it is less likely that I'm paying a third party that I do not know. because I have the infrastructure to
To
verify.
verify. Yeah.
That's not common. So if you go to US today, somebody can remove the last O and put one, and you will not know that you're transferring money or wiring money to somebody else.
It won't verify
It
them.
will verify. There's no instant verification. It's not a common feature. And that's where you begin to, applaud the ingenuity that have gone into growing our payment infrastructure. Even this one that, to verify that this payment is correct, do an OTP. They send you an OTP to verify.
To verify, yeah.
It's not common. It's not common in all climes. You go to US, you just swipe your card. It does all the
Instant
payment. And
it's too easy.
It's too easy. But here it's very difficult for you to crack.
But don't you think that it has to be difficult here? Because if someone fraudulently swipes your card abroad, the bank will do a refund or refund the money back to you. But in Nigeria, the case is not exactly the case.
Of course, because we know we have the challenges that we are faced with: identity issues, legal frameworks, the operating environment, the trust deficit factor. So we needed to build something that is very robust,
multiple layers
of checks and balances and security that people can rely on. That's the only way you can go. And going by the numbers, traffic that we'll now see on mobile based or electronic transfers and payments. If I see what happens within the banking house, and then you realize that the clearing system that you and I used to know is completely dead.
It's dead.
How many years ago did you see anybody issuing a check?
I have checks that I don't know where I kept them.
That's the system we are in today. So that's the benefit of or the beauty or the capacity of the payment system we have in Nigeria, which we should all praise. So that Flutterwave is part of the people who are contributing to this level of infrastructure, payment infrastructure, is something we should be proud of. So it's one of Nigeria's greatest exports. So it will be the president's interest to showcase one of our brightest, one of our first 11. So it's in order for him to see the MD or the team of Flutterwave. It's a Nigerian homegrown unicorn that has gone international, that have raised series of funding from international funders, not local funders.
And I think it's one company everybody will be excited to have listed on the exchange. The last valuation they had, I think, was in 2022, $3 billion valuation. So if Flutterwave lists on the exchange today, that company is going to have control about 7% of the capitalization of the NGX, putting it in the rank of MTN, the Dangotes of this world. And again, for the NGX has not been very attractive, particularly for young people, which was not the case back in the 2000s. You had a lot of bankers. The middle class was heavily invested in the stock market, but that is not the case today. But if we're able to pull this through and somehow get Flutterwave to list on the exchange, I think it's going to attract a lot of young people.
Well, the question is, would Flutterwave want to list in the Nigeria Stock Exchange now? I have my doubts. And I also have doubts around the valuations that are being bandied around. A few years ago, a certain fintech was valued far ahead the top tier 1 banks combined together.
You want to name names?
I won't name names. But where is that fintech today? The valuations are... Who is doing the valuation? What metrics? Who is auditing those metrics? So if you have my point. A couple of the valuations have all come to crash. We've seen a lot of liquidations, closures in that space.
Yeah.
You see a company raise $1 million, and in 12 months time, they are packing up.
They're bankrupt.
They are bankrupt. So it then tells us as an investor that these valuations may have been very faulty. They were based on premise. They were never real. So it's a whole different ball game when you want to list, because full disclosures will be demanded from you. Full disclosures about your cash flows, and that's where most of these fintechs have a challenge, or most of the startups have a challenge. They are not generating enough cash flow, and the soul of every business is cash flow. How many of the fintechs are profitable?
I'm surprised. Not many.
How many of the
In fact, big names globally are nowhere near profitable.
And I still would advise people to go the route of investment principles that the likes of Warren Buffett has been preaching. Invest in what you fully understand, invest in what you know, and then follow the money. How are they making money? What's the value of their shareholders' funds? What's the value of their retained earnings? What's the value of the free cash flows? And how is they profitable? What's the return to the investors? So this fundamental analysis is very important. So, and I know that once you think of getting listed, those you can't run away from providing those details. Valuation.
It's demanded.
It's demanded. Full disclosures. At that point, you can now see what the revaluation will be. So, I will not advise anybody to take the valuations banded by a private firm.
Yeah.
That have not provided full financial disclosures. Seriously.
I agree with you on that. But thinking about, you mentioned profitability, and I have some worries, right? Because even if they decide to list, that will also depend on the main board. If they decide to list on the main board of the exchange, that would depend on whether they are currently profitable. Because if I remember clearly, there is a rule that requires firm before listing to post profit of at least 100 million for 3 years. I don't know if that rule still exists, but if it does, isn't it obsolete today? Because this is peculiar to the Nigerian market.
Well, I'm not very conversant with the current regulatory requirements, but I do know that the market is desirous of having more companies listed so that we can deepen the market. So if the likes of a Flutterwave that have global acclaim, global exposure, wants to list, I'm sure the exchange would consider that. We'll look at the merits. At certain points, they usually would look at grant waivers where necessary.
Okay, like what they did for the likes of Dangote.
Thank you very much. So they could grant waivers and say, okay, yes, we know that this is our rule, but because of ABC, we can allow you and give you this timeline to do this.
Okay.
But I am not very certain that rule really apply, because when I take the likes of Notore,
the fertilizer company,
I wouldn't know whether they were profitable at the point they were listed, because since the listing, the stock has been nosediving, and the nosedive is largely as a result of fundamental issues.
Okay.
Because the share price is indeed a barometer. It reflects the underlying happenings in that company.
Yeah.
So there's no way you'll be making profit and your stock price will be nosediving. So, and I know that Notora is a recent listing.
Okay. Speaking of nosediving, one other thing that has been nosediving recently is interest rate. Mm-hmm. Market interest rate, whether it's the bond yields or treasury bill yields. We had the bond auction on Monday, and it surprised everybody. Rates closed much lower than expected. I think the market was expecting rates on the 2031 and 2029 to close around 20%, but it ended up closing at 19.33 for 2031 bond and 19.2 for 2029. And this is like 3% lower than the previous close in January.
More than 3%.
More than 3% for especially for 2031. And I saw your post. I can't remember if it was on WhatsApp or Facebook where you said the party is over. Is the party really over?
I think
what
so.
should we be doing?
I think so. Well, let me ask you, what was the demand?
It was at the auction. Yeah, it was crazy. 1.1.
No. It wasn't 1.1. 2 points. Total demand was about 2.5 trillion, 2.57 trillion.
Overall.
So what was the demand? What was on offer?
350.
But they even increased the size.
The allotted was about 600.
600. So they increased it by 100. So I'm saying I'm going to offer this much, and I'm getting a demand for. I mean, it's an auction, so I'll go with the lowest bids first. What was on demand? The demand was too high, and with this demand increase, I think so. You know why? 2025, I keep telling everybody, was an exceptional year.
In fact, from 2023, I think.
No, it started from February 2024.
2024, okay.
You know, where all of a sudden...
Yes, I remember. You
remember? So all of a sudden, CBN jacked up stop rate on Treasury bill from single digits to 19%. 6th of February 2025. 19%, that's 6th of February maturity. 19%. And mopped over 1 trillion naira. And they continue with that mopping. Because there was a lot of... You remember that the primary responsibility of CBN, as I was taught, and I have always believed, is primary reason is price stability.
Yeah.
And arising from the devaluation and the subsidy removals and all that, we had high volatility, price volatility in February 2024. February, March. It got so worse that nobody knew the price of anything. You go to the market and you ask what is the price of this carton of Indomie. They tell you, wait, let me make a call.
It was becoming like a joke.
But that's what was happening.
It happened to me. I was at Samsung store last year.
And
I was looking at the price of their AC. I was still contemplating whether to buy or not. And I went upstairs. By the time I came down, they had changed the price. I spoke all the English I could that day. And they insisted I paid a new price. Just went upstairs and came down. The price changed. So
it happened to a lot of people.
It was like a joke.
That's what was happening. People were scared to sell.
Yeah.
People were scared to sell. So no economy, no investment can be done in an atmosphere of uncertainty. Especially price uncertainty. Because you don't know what the price of any goods and services were any longer. And at that time, exchange rate was every 4 to 3 hours. They tell you the exchange rate has changed. I mean, you can tell me better. You play boy in the FX market than myself. So.
No, I'm not an FX.
But you have more better exposure.
Yeah.
So you can relate the story.
Yes.
So, and there was a lot of speculative attack. Remember, too, that under the past administration, I think they were implementing what I call financial repression because the interest rates and the prices of financial securities, when compared to inflation, they were not jiving.
It was not in sync.
They were not in sync.
At all.
How can you have Treasury rate at 5% and inflation was at They were not in sync. So that was an abnormality. So the new CBN administration came and said, okay, wanted to do the orthodox
Monetary policy.
monetary policy.
Yeah.
I had to bring MPR as close as possible. And because you had an artificially low interest rate, people could engage in speculative attack on the naira. I don't know whether you participated, but people were borrowing naira to buy dollars. With the hope that they will sell their dollar, pay the interest cost, and have change.
Have more.
So you needed to curb that. And one way of coping that was to incentivize savings, make the cost of borrowing higher, and limit the capacity of the deposit money banks to create credits, which is why they jacked up CRR to as high as 50%. So that's what they did largely for the greater part of 2024. Now, those treasury bills are maturing, coupled with increasing FAC allocations that also supplies to the market. And they have largely achieved the price stability they sought.
Yeah. So credit to the CBN governor. He's done, to me, he's done tremendously well.
They have largely achieved
In
that
that
price
regard.
stability that they sought.
Yeah.
And the reforms are beginning to pay off.
True.
So there's no need, in my opinion, for them to continue to keep the interest rates, or to keep borrowing, or keep mopping, or keep rising the interest rates. Because a higher interest rate also comes at a very huge cost
To the economy.
to the economy, because you are crowding out the real factor from the credit markets. Because the cost of borrowing, the average borrowing cost today is about 35% per annum. How many businesses can pay that cost and remain profitable? So, and as we approach the election period, I don't think it would be wise that this government wants to go into the elections in a period of high interest rates.
And high inflation.
And high inflation. So those are key issues, popular measures they would want to focus on to ensure that they don't go into the elections in bad books. So in my opinion, the reforms are beginning to work. The stability has been achieved. Source of revenue is improving. Crude oil production level is also improving. Inflows, FPI inflows, is also improving. You heard about the 30th December. Did you participate?
I was in Abuja. I didn't go to Lagos.
But it was 30th December everywhere.
Yeah.
It was 30th December everywhere. I was in Afibo.
In the east.
I was in Afibo. And I know someone who is into beverages. The level of economic activities I saw in Afibo in December is unprecedented.
People ordinarily is known for consuming.
So there were a lot of activities. There was this, what they call Afibo Unity Walk, that happens on the 26th of December every year. People came from all over the world to Afibo on the 26th.
All over the world.
All over the world. People of Afibo extraction.
Okay.
Or people who lived in Afibo. Or people who have friends from Afibo, who wants to reconnect with the Afibo that they used to know. They all came back. And they had these cultural art exhibitions that also happened on the 29th. So you see people from that you've never seen in 30 years, they saw them at the event, and it was great. And increased a lot of academic activities. Almost people were now also emergency guest houses, turning their houses to emergency guest houses.
Yeah.
Because there was no accommodation. The hotels were all filled up. Even a couple of people became emergency Uber drivers, turned their vehicles to convey, because people needed to move from A to B and all that. Despite the hyped insecurity in the Southeast, I think there are a lot of people flocked into the Southeast, especially the people that was in December. So it's not just about this, about Lagos. I'm also sure that a lot of people, you saw the burial that happened just a few weeks after
Christmas
in Anambra, and you saw a lot of people that were there. So most of them are diasporians, and they came with hard currency, and they were spending it in a local economy. So the inflow, FX inflow from the diasporian community via remittances, and of course, a lot of people jackpot.
Yeah, and they've got
And they have
projects.
dependencies.
They have projects.
They have projects. They have. There's a bubble that's almost been created in the real estate market.
Yeah, that is a subject for another day. We should come and talk about.
So those are the factors that are contributing to the FX inflows improving and then stabilizing. So I don't see interest rates being the way they were in 2024. So people should what we had in 2024 was abnormal.
Yeah, it was. It was 20 yields got up to almost 30%.
Yes,
at some point.
Some corporate commercial papers were doing way above 30.
Above that, and the interesting thing is, or the funny thing is, that a lot of people still want to keep playing in that short-term market, the treasury bill market, not remembering that at some point this investment will mature and you are carrying reinvestment risk. So for such persons today, what will you be doing?
Well, ignorance is expensive. Ignorance is expensive. So that's why I appreciate platforms like this, where we need to educate the investing public as much as we can. For those who were within my circle of influence or my network that I could talk to, I encourage them to play long term. I encourage them to lock in this high interest. It will not be sustainable. It will not last.
So currently, how long do you want to lock in? Because you've got bond duration from 2 years to about 28 years.
Yeah.
So what level of duration are you looking at currently? What tenure?
For me, okay, let me ask you. Do you have exposure to real estate? If you own the real estate, what duration are you looking at?
Long term.
What's your long term then? Are you hoping to sell that real estate in the future?
Not necessarily.
Fine.
It depends, because this
I mean, you don't have it for speculative purposes.
Okay. If I don't have it for speculative purpose, it's long term.
It's long term.
20 years.
Is your long term defined? So most times the real estate asset that we own, even at Livers, true of us.
Yeah, true.
Fine. So my position on bond investing should be more around the cash flows, not the duration. I want to log in as long as I can, and knowing fully well, having the confidence that I can exit at any time, which is why we have a market.
Yeah.
And which is why every investment professional should work towards deepening the market, ensuring that there's a free exit and free entry.
Funny enough.
So if I know that I can exit the bonds market in and get cash in 48 hours, so why should I report that? So as long as I can log into a higher yield and I have cash, 6 months cash flows, real cash flow, assuming I put in 100 million in 2035,
which is about
which is 22.65, and I get over 11 million naira every 6 months.
6 months.
It's not 22 million, 22.6 million
annually.
Am I not home and dry? And I'm going to have it for the next 10 years. Why should I worry?
Yeah, there's a point you made that I don't want us to gloss over. It's the fact that the capital market provides an opportunity for easy entry and exit.
Yeah,
a lot of people are not even aware of this.
Which is where this ignorance is paining me. Because let me give you an instance. Last year, there were a lot of public offers by the banks.
Mm-hmm.
I have people who know I've been a broker for over 20 years, who know me, who are my clients. But it came to a public offer. They would rather buy
through the
banks. I will not supply the necessary key requirements, which you must state your CSCS number, CSCS details. Now the offer is concluded. They are not allotted. They are calling me.
Their investment is in limbo.
Their investment is in limbo. They are calling me. They are writing me. See, the registrar sent me this. But when you were buying these shares, you knew us. You are a customer. And once it comes to share investment, it's not the bank. Yes, the banks don't have the way with that. They may not have the rigor to tell you you need to do this, you need to do this, and these are the implications if you don't do this.
It's not their core
It's not their core
function.
business.
It's not
Their
their
core
core.
business is to mobilize funds, help lubricate funds, help move funds around, payment systems, and they have done very well in it. But once it comes to investment, I don't think the bank should be where you should go to. Talk to an investment banker. So that's the ignorance is there. People don't have trust. People don't believe that it works. So it is our duty to ensure them that this thing works.
And for me, I think what builds trust is knowledge.
Thank you.
You can't trust a thing that you don't understand.
Thank you.
And where I think people need to make a lot of personal investment is to build their own knowledge. I'm not going to build knowledge for you. I built mine myself. Most of us didn't even come from
Finance background.
We all acquired this knowledge and
showed
got passion. Yeah. So
keen interest in following the market.
Yeah. So first of all, we even started building for our own portfolios before we started bothering about other people. So I think the responsibility is that you need to build the knowledge for yourself. Nobody is going to do it for you. Even your investment advisor can do so much for you, but he's not going to impose the knowledge on you.
Which is why I encourage anybody who is new to investing to read this book, The Richest Man in Babylon. My mentor who helped me to understand investment, who was trained in Shadada, asked me to first go and read the book and then go and read Financial Accounting, book 1 and book 2 by Frank Wood. So I read them before I even started putting a kobo or knowing anything about the market. It was just books that inspired me to learn more. What of the principle you read from Richest Man in Babylon is that it says that you can never entrust your wealth in the hands of a stranger. That's one of the principles. And you must fully invest in what you fully understand and can dimension the risks. A lot of Nigerians are not willing to do that.
Yeah, they will rather delegate.
They're not willing to learn.
That responsibility
to read.
to someone else.
They're not willing to read.
Which is crazy.
They're willing to read. They're not willing to learn. And we must deal with the hard issues. People, you see, Nigerians are victims of two problems, I think. They are enslaved by consumerism and entertainment.
Break it down.
They like to be entertained.
Yeah.
Today, who are the highest influencers on social media? People who spread what? Gossip.
Whether factual or not.
Gossip. Who are the most influential people? And what do they spread? What content? And what's the value of that content to your financial well-being?
Little.
I just like, I just were buying data to be entertained.
It's a big industry at the moment.
Yeah, but how many people benefit from it? A lot are victims. They are enslaved to it. You buy data, you buy just to be entertained.
Yeah, so they are more victims than beneficiaries.
They are more victims than beneficiaries.
So you have a handful of people benefiting from this trend, but the majority of
how many of those same people who are being entertained are learning about things that will help them in their lives? How many of them are learning about the market? How many of them are learning about the new technologies and how it will affect them, the future of their work? How many of them are retooling, upscaling, and the rest? So those are challenges we have. And then the consumerism is that this head mentality, this is in trend, let me go with the trend. Is iPhone this? Is iPhone that? Is that this person bought this one? Oh, that is Lambo. Is that
okay? You know about the Lambo stuff. You have your ears to the ground, really. Okay, so let's get into. Let's pivot a little bit. This week we also saw 2 GDP reports. The U.S. economy pulled back for Q4 2024 to 2.3%. It was 3.1 in Q3 2024, but decelerated mostly as a result of slowdown in government spending. even though I still think that the consumer pulse still remains very strong in the US. And then in Nigeria, we saw the GDP for Q4 2024 increase actually to 3.84%, up from 3.46% in the preceding quarter. So we are obviously seeing improvement in growth in Nigeria, but the growth was not across board. What do you make of?
Okay, I reviewed the GDP figures for Nigeria, and there are certain things I need to highlight here. Agriculture contributes 25% to the GDP.
To the GDP.
Trade is about 17% or 15%.
I'm not sure what the
I think it's 15%
is, no?
of the economy, and then ICT, telecoms and ICT is 17%. So the three of these contributes half of the economic component of the economy. So the economic activities in Nigeria is controlled largely by agriculture, trades, and ICT. That's about 50%. Now, let's
excluding financial services.
No. Financial services is about 6%.
6%, okay.
Of the GDP. So now agriculture decelerated from 2.3 to 1.7.
7, yeah.
It should worry us, because if you contribute 25%, it means that is the highest employer of labor within this economy. So why won't agriculture be growing at about 5%? If we're talking to have agricultural sector grow from 1.7 to about 5%, then we'll have a wonderful economy, because we would have addressed largely the labor problem. We would have engaged most of our youths. Remember that the average age in Nigeria is 16.7.
The average
age of the entire Nigerian
So
population.
we have a lot of younger people.
So what is their future? That's one factor. The second factor you need also look at the GDP figure is that agriculture decelerated. Trade also decelerated. The only one out of these three that rose significantly is telecoms, and that was about 6.something%. Then the fastest growing sector is finance and insurance, that grew by over 23%, but that is only 6% of the total economy.
Which is not really impacting on
it's
the
not really impacting
real sector.
On the real sector. So the devil is in the details.
Yeah.
But one thing the GDP figure has re-emphasized is that we are not an oil economy. Over 95% of the Nigerian economy is in non-oil sector.
So I keep questioning the notion that Nigeria is an oil economy, because if you speak to the average Nigerian, the notion is that we're an oil economy. We depend mostly on oil, and oil, by the way, actually contributes, grew by I think 1.something%.
But that's what you grew by. But what is the
less than 5%?
About 4.something.
4.something%. That's the contribution of oil to the
overall economy.
So I think this goes to what you've been talking about, ignorance, knowledge. Most of us, even unfortunately, some people at some level of authority still assume that the country is an oil economy. But we are not, obviously.
Do you know why they have that perception?
Because that's where the free money comes from.
No. What's the source of revenue? Dollar FX revenue to the economy.
Yeah, the oil
is a major significant source of revenue to the economy.
To the government.
To the government.
Yeah.
So that's source of revenue. And source of revenue, source of FX revenue, let's just put it that way. FX
Revenue.
is from the oil sector. So if you have a sector, if you go non-oil exports, maybe that perception would gradually go off.
We'll start to ease.
But as long as the crude oil source remains a significant source of FX revenue, that notion will continue to be there.
And speaking of crude oil, based on that report, the average production for Q4 was at 1.5 million barrel per day. And the government's budget for 2025 projects that we're producing, I think, close to 2 million barrel per day at 70, is it $70? The budget estimate for crude is about $70. These two assumptions, to me, they are overambitious, because getting back to 2 million barrel per day is going to take time.
It's not over.
It needs investment.
I don't think it's overambitious. You know why? Let's ask ourselves, what was our crude oil production in 2005, 20 years ago?
Over 2 million.
About 2.5. So why should we in 2025, 20 years later, be saying that a 2 million barrel production?
Because
I'm coming.
Okay.
So why should we? Are you suggesting that we have not grown in the oil and gas sector? There is no investment in the oil and gas sector, or there are no new investment in the oil and gas sector?
To me, that's the point.
So the point is, what happened? We need to put it that. We need to have a huge discussion. Nigerians need to have a discussion. What has really happened that will decline from this peak to this level? Then also now, what happened? Let's also query what happened.
Most of the
in
IOCs
2022 and 2023, when they left, they sold.
Yeah,
they
so
but in
players.
2022, 2023, production level dropped to 700 barrels per day.
True.
You are aware?
Yeah.
So what has that happened that in less than 18 months, we have moved from 700 barrels to 1.5? So that brings the reality that oil theft phenomenon could have been a drain pipe.
Okay.
So what led to the dramatic change? And there has always been, some people have alluded the fact that most of the crude oil that we produce are not accounted for as stolen. So I feel that budget estimate is not overambitious. If they can curb incidences of pipeline vandalism and oil theft and curb it to the barest minimum, we might ramp up to that 2 million barrels. But ultimately, we should make Nigeria an investment destination. The IOCs should be more comfortable operating in Nigeria than divesting from Nigeria and moving to next door Angola. Angola attracted a huge investment, financial investment in the oil and gas from Total. And if you look at the divestment they are doing, they are not divesting from the offshore oil production platforms. They are divesting from onshore and shallow waters production platforms. I do know why they are doing that. Because the operating environment has become very hostile. So that's my view about the oil sector.
Okay. The other point is the oil price. You if you look at during the last Trump's administration, oil price hardly exceeded $70 per barrel throughout the administration. And what he's pushing for currently is for prices to stay low. And what is helping him? We've seen slowdown in economic growth in Europe, most of Europe. China has their struggle in terms of economic growth. And currently we are starting to see a deceleration in the US. And he's been busy this week with trade wars. As we know today, effective 4th of March, is going to impose 25% tariff on imports from Mexico and Canada. And he's going to impose another 10% tariff on China. Europe is not completely left out of this tariff war. So ultimately, this is likely going to slow economic growth globally. And once you see a slowdown in economic growth, it's likely going to impact on oil price. And there's also the threat that America will produce and drill as much oil as they can afford to drill. Now he's
That is
also
a major factor for me, because one, he has told he doesn't believe in climate change, so he's going to ramp up fracking and crude oil explorations in US, not minding the environmental impact. So once he increased, and of course, you know that the US is a major oil producer.
yeah, I think about 20 something million barrel potential capacity to produce
Yeah,
over 20 million barrel.
they might just be maybe number 2 or number 3.
I think they are the highest.
Okay, fair,
They're the
fine.
highest.
The highest oil producer.
Yeah. And again, part of what he's discussing with Russia is to bring Russia back into the mainstream, allow Russia to start selling crude again to developed markets. You know, to bring back Russia supply into the OPEC.
Into the open market.
Yes.
So that anybody can buy from them without sanctions.
Yeah,
So that they'll no longer be operating in the black market.
Yeah.
I understand that.
Yeah, this will have implication on oil price. That is why I said that for me, the reality of 2025 is that $70
It's overambitious.
It's modest. I won't say overambitious. It's modest, but we might not hit.
I agree with you that we might see a drop in crude oil prices, especially when the supply from Russia and maybe Ukraine comes mainstream, and then when US also ramp up production. Is it the interest of the US or Trump to maintain energy prices as low as possible?
Yeah.
Because when you have energy prices as low as possible, it will discourage businesses from leaving the US to go in chase of cheaper labor. Because what they get in terms of cheaper labor, they will overcover it with lower energy costs. And somebody did analysis for us in a strategic session that shows that America has one of the lowest energy cost operating environment in the world today. And they've systematically built that over the years. So we might see a reversal of businesses going back to US to go and set up. Because you have the quality labor, you have the lower operating costs. Ultimately, that will be boost.
And you have the market. They have the market. They have the purchasing power.
They have the market. They have the purchasing power. So I won't be surprised if we have significant drop in oil prices.
Yeah. Did you get to see the exchange between Trump and the Ukrainian president?
No, I did not. But I hear from social media that there was an attempt to intimidate or humiliate the Ukrainian president. So, but I didn't watch it.
Yeah, I was actually worried why it was a public meeting in front of the press. And the expectation is that if you are having that caliber of meeting, it should be private. But for him to have that meeting with the American press present, and they were having that level of conversation, if I was the Ukrainian president, I don't know how embarrassed I would have felt. Because they practically threw him to the cleaners and were telling him, basically, sign this, you have no say in the whole discussion. But I mean, that is by the way. Coming back to Nigeria, we also saw earnings report last week from MTN. It was mixed in my opinion. At least we saw revenue grow by 36%, but the loss continued for MTN. And loss for the year accelerated to almost 400 billion naira. When is MTN going to get out of this?
Well, the MTN doesn't really have a problem. Back out FX loss that is over, I think 900 billion or something.
925 billion.
925 billion FX
losses.
Back it out, it would have made a profit of over 300 billion. So the challenge, the two major problems MTN had in 2024 was FX devaluation or the depreciation of the naira. As at the beginning of the year, naira was at 905. As at the close of the year, naira closed at 1,553. So, and they have dollar obligations, dollar liabilities, which they have to state in naira at the current exchange rates. So those dollar inputs or the exchange revaluation loss is what is putting MTN in a full year loss position. But the question we need to ask, if you look at the operating profit, is it not healthy? The operating profit of over 700 billion. So after operating profit, the rest is finance costs and exchange losses. So the two things: inflation rates impact and devaluation or devaluation impact. That is what has kept MTN in this state. The core business is not in challenge, but there is a silver lining. They have gotten the approval from the regulators for them to increase tariffs
by 50%.
by 50%. That would change the fortunes of MTN going forward. And they are a victim of operating in a regulated market or a regulated industry. Because what has happened to other businesses is that they simply transfer the cost to the consumers. Take, for instance, the likes of fancy consumer goods and all that, everything, including those who do beverages, they've transferred the cost, the increased cost, input cost to the consumers. But MTN, being a utility player, was not allowed to do that. So he has taken the regulators over 2 years to reflect the realities and increase tariff for the MTN and the likes. And if that had not been done, everybody should have been worried. Because MTN is a utility that basically everybody can't do without any longer. Just imagine if MTN and the likes stop operating, how you function. So our life now revolves around telecommunications
Those services.
It's a critical infrastructure. And almost all the operators were beginning to have we are almost nearing the threshold where they can continue to operate. And we're all beginning to experience it. They were beginning to network quality issues across board. The number of drop calls had increased in recent times. So it was a good thing that will keep the lives of MTN alive and they keep operating.
But let me ask this question. Should the government be regulating at this, at the level at which they are regulating in terms of pricing?
Yeah, but even what you should ask, even when the government gave them the leeway to increase tariffs, what was the reaction?
NLC has threatened strike, and they're still threatening, I believe.
They advocated for boycott and nobody listened to them.
How do you boycott MTN? I mean, they have over about 80 million users.
Subscribers.
So now I'm worried for MTN actually, and this is my worry. Do you always depend on, because if you look at the report, they grew their subscriber base by just 1.2% from 79 million to 80 million. Now, they are not growing that base. So to me, they need to optimize and milk that 80 million they have. We have 200 and something million Nigerians. And you mentioned just now that the average age is 16. So you have a lot of children in that pool that don't use mobile devices. So the opportunity for growth may not be as fantastic as they want to have. MTN is not going to grow subscriber base by 100% in a year because they also have competitors. So to me, I don't know what they are doing to, maximize utility from, if you look at their report, they have most of their revenue came from services, but they also have fintech, which they have been able to deepen in countries like Ghana. But that aspect of their business is not growing
Because there's competition, there's better competition.
in Nigeria. So I feel like they need to change their strategy around their fintech strategy.
I think they found their space. Their major cash cow today is data. Data. And there was significant growth in data.
Yeah,
And
I think about 46% of that.
Fantastic. And it's still growing. They found their niche. So there are a couple of factors that is mitigating against subscriber growth. One is the level of discretionary income and purchasing power. People have to prioritize. And the highest priority in most homes today is food and transport. And when you begin to see the level of, one of the measures of gauging the poverty level in a certain location or state is to look at the number of active subscribers. Active subscribers are people who have bought credit, bought airtime in the last 30 days. In the last 30 days. So it will interest you that to see that data from places like Ebonyi State is far lower, significantly lower than a smaller state like Bayelsa. What that speaks to? Purchasing power. So as people drop purchasing power, the purchasing power of people drop in certain locations and across the country. And of course, indeed, the country faced a difficult year in 2024. Poverty worsened.
Yeah.
So it's not surprising that people are not, that the subscription level did not grow as would have been expected. Because we need to address the core issue. What is at the essential needs of a household? Will it be to buy data or to eat? So let's address the purchasing power issue. Let's grow people out of poverty, and then I think the subscriber base would increase. But as more and more people rely on data to run their businesses, as new concepts like remote work,
and the entertainment mania.
As they grow, they increase the need for data.
We'll continue to
because everybody, if you're missing that, everybody wants to know what's happening. Wants to stay current. So you're wondering how I know about Lambo, because I need to stay current.
So on a personal note, do you own MTN shares?
Why, sure.
Okay, you do. So with this result, what are you doing? Are you buying more? Are you holding?
What you need to...
Certainly, I know you don't like to sell. You're a long-term investor.
Yeah, because I know that MTN is a significant portion of my portfolio, meanwhile.
Really?
Yes. And my position has always been Nigerians can't do without MTN. So if allowed to work as they should, they will make money. It's the utility. I know their product. I know the demand for their products. I have faith in the capability of their management. So I will continue to. Now what you notice is that since government approved the increase in tariff, the share price has significantly rose from around 180 to about 250 something. That's the impact of that news alone. So I don't have any fear about the future of MTN.
I believe
this is temporary. Yep. Like I said, if there is no FX volatility in 2025, and if the trend, because I understand that the FX official exchange rate now is about 1,400, right? The
official exchange rate.
Uh-huh. So if it's about 1,400 today and the trend continues. So in 2025, FTM might have a FX gain, not a loss.
If that trend continues.
Yeah,
because it's too early to call.
It's too early to call because we are just working with two months data. 2 months.
We had a similar trend last year where exchange rate came down to around 1,300.
No, but it started at 900.
Yes, rose and fell briefly before it started to ascend. And let me flog this question again. At 180, I also considered MTN undervalued. At the current price today, 200 and something, do you still consider it undervalued? Is it an entry point, or should investors wait for a pullback at this current price?
Well, I'm not doing an analysis whether for a buy or sell.
So,
But I just knew that is a company that I know the society will continuously have a demand for. And I also know that what they are facing is temporary. It's not a structural, permanent issue.
Yeah.
It's a temporary problem that will be off over time. In fact, I see it living in 2025. So I'm also positive that with the impact of the new increased tariff that is already being implemented, that Q1 results will begin to show something different. So investment is about future benefits, future expectations. So I'm keen into the future. So I'd rather hold my MTN. I may not buy more, but I'd rather hold it and leave it as it is.
I agree with you, because actually their foreign currency obligations actually dropped. In Q4 2024, they actually made a foreign currency gain of about 119 billion that reduced it.
In Q4?
In Q4. They actually made some gain. And what they have done...
So if that improvement has happened in Q4, what do you think will happen in Q1?
It will continue to trend. And they've actually started to reduce their foreign borrowings. It went down from 44% to 28% at the end of 2024. So I agree with you. We hope that the exchange rate doesn't, the Naira doesn't continue depreciating in 2024.
But what I'm just saying is that if we close the year today, I'm sure we'll post
a foreign currency gain,
not a foreign currency loss.
Yeah. All right. So we also saw a couple of earnings reports from a couple of foreign companies, mostly in the technology space. Snowflakes, NVDA, the big one, which everyone was waiting for last week. The market, before these results came out, you remember we had the emergence of DeepSeek in 2020, in January this year. And before the emergence of this DeepSeek, there was already the suspicion that most of these tech companies especially had reached a very rich valuation level, particularly the Magnificent Seven and NVIDIA and co. So everyone was waiting for that report last week to see whether NVIDIA will finally, or NVIDIA will resuscitate the market, so to speak, because we had started seeing weeks after weeks of losses from mostly the technology companies. So we finally got to see the results last week. Almost all three of them, Snowflake, NVIDIA, and Salesforce, almost all of them either beat earnings or posted earnings numbers according to estimates. So I'm going to start with Snowflake. They beat earnings expectation, EPS expectation by a whopping 67.3%. Revenue beat expectation by 3.2%. Revenue for the year grew at 27.37% from $774 million in 2024 to $986.77 million in Q4 2025. Or rather, for the full year 2025, they grew revenue by 27.37%. And the reaction of the market instantly was impressive. The stock gained almost 11% the very next day. But right after that, I think they are closing the week negative of about 0.4%. So the next company was Salesforce. Salesforce revenue came fairly in line with estimate, $9.99 billion. the market was estimating 10.04 billion. So if you want to consider rounding off, you say they underperformed estimate. However, their EPS outperformed estimate by 6.4%. And however, the downside for Salesforce was that they provided a lower than expected guidance for full year 2026 rather, full year 2026. They provided a lower than anticipated revenue estimate. The market didn't like that at all. Then the big one, NVDA. NVIDIA actually beat both top and bottom line. Revenue outperformed estimate by 2.96%, while EPS outperformed estimate by 4.71%. Their full year revenue increased by 114%. Revenue for the quarter grew quarter on quarter compared to Q3 2025, grew by 12.11%. But the thing is, the market is used to NVIDIA beating estimates by a wide margin. So the market didn't like this result at all, even though they outperformed estimate. They also provided a guidance better than anticipated. They provided guidance for 43 billion revenue in Q1 2026, better than expected. So the result finally came out and failed to lift the mood of the market. Obviously, the market is still worried about valuations. The market is worried about the trending trade wars between US, Europe, and China, and the fact that this might continue to escalate. And then, of course, there's the angle from DeepSeek indicating that there are going to be cheaper ways of executing this whole AI infrastructure. However, in my opinion, I think NVIDIA is still in a pole position in terms of the fact that even new technologies like DeepSeek will continue to need their chips to drive this whole AI trend. Ms. Okudili, obviously, the US market was down for the week. However, the Nigerian market kept trending upwards. Even
down.
though we saw losses most of last week, for the year, the NGX is still up about 4% or thereabout for the full year to date. Is the NGX going to repeat the performance we've seen in 2023, 2024? What should we expect this year, 2025? 2025.
I think the performance of 2024 is within reach. And I'll say this based on three major factors. Number one, as interest rate tend downwards, the interest will shift to the equities market. So as more demand increases, it might affect the first price. That's number one factor. Number two factor is I'm awaiting impressive results from the banks.
Starting this month, right?
Starting this month. From the Q9 results, even at half year, the likes of GTCO had posted a whooping 1 trillion profit before tax. So I'm anticipating fantastic results from the banks. And the banks are a major weight of the entire NGX market. So that can kind of rev the market upwards. Thirdly, the Nigerian market has for over a decade been unduly underpriced. Most of the quoted companies are trading far below book value. And then we'll have PE ratios at close to 2 times, 3 times. That's an indication of very undervalued stocks. As knowledge increases, and then as confidence in the economy increases, foreign portfolio investors who are interested in our market are seeing how cheap these stocks are, will troop in and help increase demand, which ultimately lead to a price increase. So these are the factors I see that can rev up the market and
to
see
the
us
level of 2024.
close to, maybe close, or maybe between it, maybe around it.
All right. You talked about investors' confidence. One thing I think that can drive confidence for foreign investors' confidence is GDP. We have not touched the level we saw prior to 2015. We've not seen our GDP reach that level. At what point do you think we're going to see GDP start to trend around 5, 6, 7% again?
Well, it might be tough because for the GDP to grow significantly, we need to improve the operating environment. We need to address those key challenges that made the key contributors to the economy have very sluggish growths, especially agriculture and trade and trade services. So that, I think, but the GDP alone might not necessarily be the major factor that will lead to
For foreign investors?
investors coming. The foreign investors will also primarily look at stability of your systems, your institutions,
The exchange rate.
the exchange rate, FX liquidity, legal frameworks, disclosure requirements, and the operating companies and the market and the depth of the market they're operating. It's all about making money.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we should be worried that our GDP growth is not significantly higher than our population growth. There's something we are also not talking about. In 2014, GDP per capita was over $2,500. GDP per capita today is about $835. That should worry us.
But they'll ask you, are you spending dollars in Nigeria? Why are you looking at GDP per capita in dollars?
That's
This is the other side that a lot of people will ask. I get the point that it makes a lot of sense to look at it in dollar terms. But I'm playing the devil's advocate in a way.
okay. What's the essence of GDP? Is it not so? Why do we measure the GDP? It's not they compare economy to economy. So what would be the benchmark to compare the economies?
In dollars.
So what are we talking about?
I'm glad you said I just wanted to spur that conversation because when you speak about relative metrics like this, a lot of people want you to stick to Naira if you are talking about Nigeria. But if you're looking at the future sustainability, it makes more sense, as you've said, to compare apples to apples, not apples to oranges. Okay, looking ahead in the coming week, we'll keep our ears to the ground for
No problem.
the bank earnings. Once we cite them, we'll be back to talk about them. One company that is going to publish their earnings report this week is Seplat Petroleum on the 4th of March. So we're going to, and it's one of the major companies that we track. So we're going to look at the result and come back next week to discuss those numbers. If you've made it this far on this show, we thank you for sticking with us. We thank you for listening. Be sure to tune in every Monday as we'll do our best to never miss any of this episode for the rest of the year 2025. I'm Mr. Okudili. I thank you so much for making out time from your very, very, very busy schedule. You're a busy man.
I hear you.
I'm excited to have you on this show, and I hope we'll continue to see more of you. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. We are here to deepen financial literacy in our country, and the way you can support us is to share this episode with your contacts. Thanks for listening.